Hello, New Zealand. I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. This is episode 48. And tonight we talk about the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump and its implications for democracy, the US, and the upcoming presidential election. Also, are all charities being targeted by a review of their taxation status, or is it just churches? The grounding of the Inter-Islander ferry, the Aratiri, exposed some issues with both the unions and the media. Are we getting the truth? And if we have time, we'll help Labour leader Chris Hipkins with his strategy for winning back the vote in Auckland. Without further ado, let's introduce the panel and another beautiful looking lineup today. Rodney Hyde, firstly, in the deep, dark south. How are you, Rodney?
Cold. Dark and cold. It's been bitter today.
Okay, that sums it up. Well, let's go back to Auckland with Snowflake with the heat pump, Simon O'Connor. You're nice and warm, Simon?
Well, I was thinking I was dark and cold, but that might not be referring to the weather or more to do with my personality.
Yep. Bruce Logan below you in Christchurch. Pretty cool down there, Bruce?
Yes, I'm heat pumped up too.
Okay, well done. And in Esk Valley, Ashley Church. How are you, Ashley? You got through all those books on the bookshelf?
No, not yet. I'm actually more concerned about the directly below me with Mal and the foreboding darkness that she's in there. I'm not sure what's going on. So.
Well, she hasn't paid her power bill. Mal Taylor, what's happened down there or up there? Is that power pylon falling over again?
Power bill. Oh, something's happened because it's not just Mangataroto. It's huge area out to Mangawhai and further up north, and all out of power.
Okay, well, hopefully they're watching on their phones with a bit of power still. And welcome back to Sue Reid, who I don't think we've seen for a couple of weeks. You've been in Tasmania, haven't you, Sue?
A couple of months.
Months.
I had to freshen up my Aussie twang, and you remember I'm half. I am Australian, so yes. But it's good to be back into New Zealand and back to my family here too. So.
Okay, well, I don't think there's any argument about the image of the week. This is the image of the week. It's the image of the weekend. It's going to be one of those iconic images that you're never going to forget about. And we will talk about it a bit more. But last week when I was putting the program together, I did have two videos for the video of the week. And so, panelists, I'd like you to help me out here. Which do you think is the video of the week? The first one is where President Biden calls the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Oops. Okay, so there was that one. And then the other video of the week I thought was where, once again featuring President Biden, he called Trump his woman vice president.
Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
So there's your nominations. Is it Zelensky as president of Russia? Or Vice President Trump as the first woman vice president for Biden. All those for Zelensky, raise your hand. 2. All those for Vice President Trump. 4. Okay, Vice President Trump wins. That's this one.
President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Okay, anyway, yesterday, a more serious topic, and this has just been added to the program, so we're keen to have a bit of a discussion around this because it is the news story of the last 72 hours, or, well, 24 hours, but it feels like it's been 72 hours. Yesterday at about 9:30 New Zealand time, so about 5:30 p.m. US time on a Saturday afternoon, this happened.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Yeah, pretty shocking scenes. A 20-year-old Pennsylvania man was able to access a roof with a gun just 128 metres from the stage where President Donald Trump, former president, was speaking. And sadly, amazing story, very sad, a father of two was killed when he defended his family from the gunfire by jumping in front of his family. But it was Trump's response, I think, that amazed everyone. And here's what he did.
Wait.
Yeah, pretty amazing response. Now, just in fairness, this was a response of President Biden before I come around the panel for your reaction.
The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. That's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of wood.
Okay, not in the hands of shooters. Okay, so I want to come around the panel and just find out what was your response and how do you think it'll affect the US in the upcoming presidential election. And then I also want to look at the media coverage because that got my blood pressure boiling as well, just watching what was happening yesterday. I'm sure there's going to be a bit of to and froing tonight. So, team, if you do want to say something, just raise your hand and or just give me a wave so that I know to come to you. But I will just go around in order to start with. So, Rodney, I'm going to start with you. As you saw this unfolding, as you heard about it, what was your response?
It's incredibly sad. And, to see in a great democracy, another attempt on a presidential candidate or a president, it's a terrible thing. But we're not surprised, are we? Because for at least 8 years, the Democratic leadership and the legacy media of America, and indeed elsewhere, has been demonizing Donald Trump and painting him as an Adolf Hitler, a threat to democracy, a threat to constitution, a threat to women, a threat to freedom. And when you have that level of rhetoric over and over and over, it actually justifies someone deranged in their minds to shoot him, to assassinate him. So that's what's happened here. It's the level of rhetoric that we're seeing against conservatives, against the likes of you and I that are listening and hosting on this show. We get accused of being fascists and Adolf Hitler in our views. And of course, if someone is an Adolf Hitler, you're justified in shooting them. The other appalling thing that's happened here is how on earth, when there's Secret Service, did a man manage to crawl onto a roof and take several shots? Don't understand it.
No. Okay, Simon, what was your initial response?
A bit similar to Rodney's, actually, and so sad, incredibly disappointing at so many levels. Obviously, an assassination attempt, a young father, volunteer firefighter, dead protecting his family, and a 20-year-old boy who was the shooter, also dead. So this is just tragedy on tragedy here, as well as a symbolic tragedy for American democracy. But I echo also what Rodney's saying, is this was completely predictable. The rhetoric has been escalating from both sides for so long that some outbreak of very particular violence was expected, and particularly directed at Trump. And I do fear I'm already repeating what others or other has said. You can't go around, as the Democrats and a lot of the commentariat have, demonizing someone like Donald Trump as the gravest threat to democracy without eventually someone deciding to have a crack at him. And already you are beginning to see the victim blaming. Somehow it's Donald's fault that this is a gun law issue, which I would argue it's not. Massive questions around the Secret Service, beyond appalling that someone can come within 100 and less than 150 meters. All of these things are swirling. But on the positive, not the shooting, but the response, very clear that Trump understood the moment. Obviously, a few seconds to compose himself, clear that he'd been trained by the Secret Service, but he had the wherefore to tell his detail to stop, raised his fist and mouthed fight. He picked the moment, and that's going to be probably the biggest contrast now between him and Biden, one who bumbles versus someone who got shot at, survived, and stood strong.
Yep. Bruce, were you surprised that something like this would happen? I mean, it seems to have been...
No, I suppose I'm not surprised. It took a while for it to sink in to me. The first thing I thought about, oddly, was the attempted assassination on President Reagan.
Yeah.
And the difference, and how now the country's so polarized, quite different from Reagan's time, when Reagan made a joke. Remember, honey, I forgot to duck. I don't know if you remember that. There was a bit of humour there. No humour this time.
No.
But on the other hand, this is actually a great opportunity for Trump. I can remember I was reading something from Paul Johnson some time ago, and went something like, "What makes for political success?" And he said, "Events, dear boy, events."
Yeah.
And I think this is an event that could make for considerable success for Trump, political success, and even wider than that.
Yeah.
I mean, he said, "God alone saved me," which will go down well with a lot of people. Even Boris Johnson said it was a miracle. And he was almost biblical in the way he talked, Trump. What was it? "We will fear not."
Yeah.
But instead remain resilient in our faith and defiant in the face of wickedness. So his call for Americans to unite, he thanked his security team. So he did everything right. And there's a background story, too, of the 50-year-old who died shielding his wife and daughters from attack. And his daughter said, "He truly loved us enough to make take a real bullet for us." So there's a lot of stuff there that Trump can build on. Whether the swing voters will come on more, and I think there are only 4 or 5% of them left anyway. But I think it will change the American scene, and it could change it for the positive. It doesn't have to change it for the negative at all. I think we've got an opportunity now for America to move forward in a way it hadn't before.
Yeah, and I read that when Reagan was shot, he actually had a 22-point bump in the polls because of his response. Ashley, I know you're a big fan of Trump. What's your thoughts?
Well, so let's just start by saying thank God that he wasn't shot and or wasn't killed. And you know, once we stop talking in the political process and we start shooting at people, we've lost any semblance of democracy. And you'll remember last week I had some pretty strong views on Trump, which didn't go down too well with some of your viewers. And I'm not going to disappoint this week. And at the risk of enhancing that rhetoric that the guys talked about before, and picking up interestingly on the comment that Bruce made about the biblical proportions of this, and I've got a point to what I'm about to say, so bear with me for a second. I've been a Christian for about 40 years, and for almost all of that time I've been a follower of something called Bible prophecy. It's this idea that we could preempt knowing what was going to happen in the future. And for about 20 of those years, I was a follower of something called premillennial eschatology, which is just a flash way of saying that I believed in a particular view of what's called end times events. And it's a view that's probably shared by most people who are Christians and who are actually viewing this show. It's a very popular view within evangelical Christianity. And it's got a number of features to it, Bob. It's got this idea of a thing called the rapture, which is taking people away before these terrible events happen. The mark of the beast, this thing called the 7-year tribulation, which is a 7-year terrible time that's supposed to come on the earth at the time of the end. And this character called the Antichrist. And this Antichrist character, according to people who believe in premillennial eschatology, comes on the world scene, is seen as being a savior figure, and the world sees him as somebody who's going to solve all the world's problems, but he actually turns out to be a bad guy and actually basically takes the world into this terrible period that ends this particular phase of our history. Now, what's interesting about that is that this Antichrist figure's got there's a whole range of things by which we're supposed to identify him, but there's two in particular that I find very interesting in respect of the last few days. One of them is that he's supposed to be somebody who is so charismatic and so engaging and so popular that he fools most of the world, including, this is a really important point, most Christians. Most Christians actually believe this guy to be this savior figure. But here's the other one that I find extremely interesting. Those who believe this also believe that there's one thing that will happen that will basically enhance his status and really escalate him on the world scene. And it's either that he has a recovery from a serious wound or that there's an assassination attempt on him. Now, I find that absolutely fascinating. Now, I hasten to add, I don't believe in that. I've moved on from premillennial beliefs. I've got a different view. I'm actually putting them into a book that I'm finishing the finish touches to. But there'll be a lot of people watching this who are Christians who do believe that stuff. And those people are waiting for this character. And let me say to those people, if you believe that, this guy, you don't need to wait anymore. Here he is. He's on the world scene and he meets all of the criteria that you believe this guy's actually supposed to meet. Here he is. Meet him. His name's Donald Trump. So what'll be interesting is to see what happens and how Christians react to this, whether they see this as somehow enhancing his status or they recognise these things that they've been saying are going to happen for the last 20 or 30 years. In respect to his election prospects, this won't make any difference. Trump had this thing in the bag 3 months ago. Biden's speech, this, all of those other things, they might bump up his figures in the polls, but he's going to win regardless.
Okay. I thought you were talking about Jacinda, to be honest.
No, Trump.
Oh, okay.
Here he is. He's arrived.
Somebody said Ashley is describing Obama, but there we go. Right. Let's go to the deep, dark north where they can't even afford power. Mel, what's your thoughts? How did you respond?
How did I respond? It was really tragic. It was not unexpected. I think a lot of people are surprised it didn't, there weren't more attempts some time ago. Really sad that the media didn't pick up, I guess, a lot on the people that were critically injured and the guy that died. That's really, really tragic. He's hoping that Trump is like, oh my gosh, I really need Jesus. I'm going to fully commit my life. That would be an amazing outcome. But there's been lots of memes around, some of them are a little bit funny, but at the end of the day, someone lost their life and two others, their family's affected forever. And, two others critically injured.
Okay, Sue, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, we had the odd occasion of having the TV on because we'd actually watched Q&A and watched Debbie Nariwa Packer's terrible interview, and she uses some of that rhetoric that Simon alluded to. Was truly quite frightening to think that this is within our own nation. But I would add that there's nothing wrong with Trump's cognitive function because he responded so quickly, and he was so fearless in standing up and taking control of the moment, and he was not afraid. And I think that these actions can terrify people. It's why acts of violence like this are called terrorism. It terrifies people. He stood up there with absolute conviction and fearlessness. And I think the difference, Bruce was talking about Reagan's, the difference between Reagan and now is we have the added dimension of social media, and that social media was all over this, and there were so many different angles, and you were getting the full picture very, very quickly. So the media didn't have an opportunity to shut things down, that it was all over there and people could make up their own minds. I know you're going to get onto the media response, but because I was watching TV and then this all unfolded and we turned to live TV, we watched that bumbling cobbling together from, especially on TV1 News. Miriama Kamo was finishing her marae interview and was going to live news, and there was a bit of hesitancy, and she said, well, there were thousands at this rally. Oh, what am I saying? This is a Trump rally. There were hundreds at the rally and rolled her eyes. And I thought it was so telling. She talks about misinformation all the time. There was a deliberate attempt at misinformation. And then Jack Tame gets on and said, we haven't got all the information yet. He couldn't even call it a shooting. And so that was interesting. That was my response, watching the narrative unfold after the initial shock, like, wow. I mean, in lots of ways I thought, this was coming. This was coming, and it is a dangerous movement, and this dangerous rhetoric that has been around. And I think I wasn't surprised, but the interesting part was seeing it unfold in the media in the hour or 2 hours afterwards.
Yeah. Bruce and Simon, I do want to just come to you to respond to what Ashley said. Ashley, can I just clarify, though, are you saying that you believe that Trump is the Antichrist, or you're saying if you follow certain teachings?
I actually no longer believe in the concept of an Antichrist. It doesn't fit my eschatology. What I'm saying is that most of the people who are Christians watching this will, and if they're true to their convictions and they believe that the signs that they themselves have indicated will determine who this guy is, it's Trump.
Okay. Bruce, what's your response to that?
Well, it's not Trump. Couldn't possibly be Trump. And I actually still believe in the old eschatology. And even if I do, Trump's quite out of the question. He's too old for a start. No, it's not. He's quite out of the question. It's a non-issue as far as Trump's concerned.
Simon?
I'm not. My theology doesn't embrace that sort of eschatology. I'm very much of the you don't know the day or the hour. So I'm not someone who particularly worries about the end times or looking for signs. However, I am getting the angle I think that Ashley's coming from, that for those who want to embrace it and believe in certain signs, then how are they going to respond to what is a series of these signs has happened, regardless of what you think of Trump and his age and so forth. It's a challenging moment. But yeah, it's not my particular eschatology, and I think would be dangerous to read anything particularly spiritual into this, I would suggest. But there's nuances in that as well.
Yeah. Ashley, I mean, could based on that argument, could Ronald Reagan have fitted that category as well?
Oh, no, he couldn't. In fact, it's one of the interesting things about the whole Antichrist theology, and this is why I strongly disagree with Bruce, is you could have made pretty much any leader over the last 50 years fit those criteria. The difference, though, and I think the point I was making with the two aspects of this that I was talking about before, is how closely Trump fits what these people claim is actually going to be the two determining criteria for this guy. This is something I studied for years and was absolutely invested in, so I know what this looks like. And while I don't believe in it anymore, I know that there's lots of other people that do. And I'm as Simon said, I'm going to be very interested to see what the response to this is, because it's not, you can't have your glass half full on this. It's one or the other.
Okay, I want to come around and just ask what impact is this assassination attempt going to have on the outcome of the election? Maybe some predictions, and how's it going to affect the US? But let's just check some of the comments, because they've been coming roaring in. In fact, we've got a massive audience watching tonight. What's happening? Is it cold outside or something? Nobody's doing the lawns. Lee says, evening team from Okuku in North Canterbury. Is that how you say it? And Viv says, evening from Tairua on the Coromandel Peninsula. That's nice. Derek Kiwi Somerville says, always remember that Kennedy was the only Democrat president assassinated, and that was by a communist fanatic. The others were all Republicans shot by Democrat Party followers. Well, it's not a competition, is it? Pauline says Biden incited it all in the weaponization of FBI and Secret Service and media. Oh, Pauline, you're not very pleased with Biden, are you? Johan, says Biden weak, Trump strong. The past 4 years of Biden ushered in mass illegal immigration, botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, conflict and tension between Taiwan. Look, I have to put this one up. Where he says, "What are you smoking, Ashley? And where can I get some?" No, he was part of the Say No to Dope campaign, so I want you to know that that's definitely not the issue. Okay, what will be the effect of the of the assassination attempt? Does it mean that Trump will make America great again? And just before I come around and ask you that, I just have to show you this clip. This is what President Biden said today, and I want you to watch just how close he went to saying, "Make America great again." Watch.
So tonight, I'm asking every American to recommit to make America. Think about it.
Yeah, think about it, because I don't want to say it. There's probably someone in the background going, "Don't say MAGA." Anyway, Rodney, how's this going to affect the upcoming presidential election?
Well, I always believed that Trump was going to win in a landslide, and I think it's going to be a double landslide now. That was an iconic photo. It was an iconic moment. You've got a very gifted political communicator. The photo that I would compare that is to the men raising the flag at Iwo Jima.
Yeah,
the
somebody
once you
commented
see
on
it,
that.
you can't unsee it. And what does that display? Put aside your feelings about Trump. The man's just had someone take a shot at him to kill him.
Yeah.
And he brushes aside the Secret Service bodyguards, stands up tall, raises fist in the air in defiance, and shouts, "Fight, fight, fight." He wanted to complete his speech, and the crowd, to a man and to a woman, were screaming "USA, USA."
Yeah.
If that doesn't send or raise the hairs on the back of your head, the utter defiance and courage, literally in the face of fire, nothing will. Man, that's the sort of leader that I want.
Yeah. Okay. And did I play that clip? This was it.
Wait.
Wait.
Fight.
Yeah, it was funny. I was watching it live and all I could see was, and I thought he was saying something bad. Fortunately, the media corrected me and told me, no, the word was fight. And what we didn't hear in that commentary, he was also saying, "Hang on, I've got to get my shoes." So they must have been expensive shoes. I mean, you'd think he'd be in shock having just been struck in the head. And I hear that it was only because he tilted back to look at a graph that was being shown on the screen that it changed the angle that the bullet struck him. Quite incredible. Simon, what effect is this going to have on the outcome of the election?
Look, it will have an effect, undoubtedly. As I said a bit earlier, you've got quite the contrast in imagery, and that particular image that you showed at the start from the Associated Press, iconic, and exactly that one. And I don't use icon or iconic lightly. You couldn't have posed it better. It is quite the contrast. But I suppose, and it's what I wrote in my Substack yesterday. Here's some blatant advertising, but I don't think it's going to have the dramatic effect that many are suggesting. Partly, I think Trump was already on a trajectory to win. The other is that, put it this way, do we really think Democrats are going to switch their votes because of this? The answer to me is no. But it will have an impact on the swing voters, who will see a stronger, defiant leader. And so that could have an effect, particularly in swing states where literally 1 or 2%. But I suppose what I'm trying to suggest is I don't think this is going to have a dramatic effect. It's not going to see Biden wiped off the ticket and Trump roll home in all the states. But it will have an impact for sure.
Yep.
Just not as dramatic as many are suggesting.
Bruce, do you think it will, based on just what you saw when Reagan was shot and even the impact of when JFK was assassinated?
I don't know. I don't think it will, but it doesn't need to, because the move has already started. Trump had already started to move up considerably, and goodness me, looking at Trump, he's been impeached twice, accused of rape, he's been arrested, condemned in court, labelled a traitor, survived COVID, and now he's been shot in the ear. So he's gone through all these things. He comes out shouting, "Fight, go for it," and well, you can't say he's got a tin ear anymore, can you?
Ching. I hope you liked our subtitle that we put for this topic tonight. Where is it, Gordy? There it is. Trump dodges a bullet. Hey, took me ages to think that up. Ashley, President Trump on November the 7th?
Yep, overwhelmingly. But as I said before, this hasn't made this happen. He's been on a trajectory, as Bruce said, for the last 3 or 4 months. He had this in the bag months ago. This is just icing on the cake for him.
Yep. Sue?
Yeah. Yeah, he's galvanising the people. He's been trending in the polls, before this. And as my husband points out, because I said, how can this be these two men out of America? But he's a diehard Trump fan, and he said, well, they'll vote. He was voted by the Republicans. He's their person they want. So I've gone with that. He's just galvanising the people now and voters, and he's created a movement. But I just want to come back to Ashley saying about the Trumpers. The people would think he was the Antichrist. If you have an American-centric eschatology, you would think that, but that is not correct eschatology. That was the only point I was going to come back to. So I think, Trump's, he's just going to galvanise the people, and people have probably not been thinking about it. They're like, oh, hang on, this is just not on. This is not what we want in America, and it's going to make them resolute in their vote. I did see a young guy tonight on the news say that he's never voted, and he knew the fireman that passed away was killed by one of the bullets, and he said that in memory of him, he's going to vote, and he's going to vote for Trump. So there's all sorts of tangents, but it has created a movement, and there's no way any media or anything can stop that roll now.
No, and look, I think the same would have happened if an attempt had been made on Biden's life as well. Mel?
Yeah, I agree with Simon in that it will have some impact, but I think a lot of voters have already made up their mind, in my opinion. The left will still try and swing it. They've still got the media on their side. There'll still be things like, here's Trump yelling, fight, 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 instead of, is everyone okay? Is anybody hurt? They'll still spin it however they can to try and make him look bad.
Okay, there are some very funny comments coming through, so let me just... hang on. That's the view all via the queue. Okay. Matthew says, very eloquently said, Rodney, and Philippa said, well put, Rodney. What did you say, Rodney?
Oh, something witty.
I can't even remember.
One thing, Bob, to add. One thing to add in, Bob, I think this has confirmed Biden to be the candidate, because the Democrats now realise they're going to lose, and they won't want to lose with another candidate.
Yeah.
They'll blame Biden. So Biden's going to be the person the Democrats put up now.
Yeah, agree. Erin says, make America great again, make Australia great again, and make New Zealand great again. Craig says, does Rodney have hairs on the back of his head?
Funny enough,
that is mean.
It's one of only two places. I have them.
Oh,
I know. And Erin says she forgot a country and make Canada great again. Kevin says, for all the negative things said about Trump, I've heard him preaching the gospel on the White House lawn. Were you actually there, there, Kevin? I'm interested to know that, genuinely. Greg Greg says the guy with all the books behind him is the most unintelligent one there. I haven't got any books behind me. And this is my favourite. John says, and it was then the Secret Service agent had his opportunity and shouted, "Donald, duck!" Cha-ching. Okay, very good, team. You are doing superb tonight. Right now, I do just want to look at the media's response because, as I said, for some reason, I just happened to be waiting for my family to wake up very late in the morning, and I started seeing the live coverage of the actual incident. And look, I knew, well, maybe it's because I lived in LA for a couple of months, so I know the sound of gunfire, but it was quite clear that, one, a gun had been fired, and two, Trump had been hit. Now, whether it was a BB gun or a pellet gun, I'm not quite sure, but it was quite clear that someone was aiming at Trump. But then I started watching the media stories that came out, and look, I've just got a little roll here of them. So CNN said the Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at the rally, sort of trying to get the Biden type look. NBC said they rushed Trump off stage after popping noises, almost like a party was happening. USA Today, Trump removed from stage after loud noises startled him. Yeah, they just startled him. That's why the blood was pouring out his ear. The One News, Donald Trump rushed off stage at US rally, shots reported. Absolutely no mention that this could have been an assassination attempt. Washington Post, Trump was escorted away because it was really, really noisy. Okay. And then there was MSNBC. I mean, these are all leftist newspapers, right? Donald Trump safe after popping sounds heard at rally. CNN tried to update it. Trump injured in incident. So it was just an incident. Then we had Newsweek, which all they could say was that MAGA people were really annoyed. That was the best that they could come up with. This is the Associated Press. The shooting at Trump is being investigated as an assassination attempt. Well, I could have done the investigation as soon as I saw it and told them the answer. This was the one that actually did get it correct. Trump shot on side of the head in apparent assassination attempt. And that came in pretty quickly on that particular news source. Just looking locally, the Australian had this, Trump survives. The New Zealand Herald talked about a defiant moment. And this was the New York Times, Trump hurt but safe after a shooting. So, I just thought the media just did not want to admit. I mean, look, as I said in my social media, if this had been Biden and that same thing had happened, it would be all over the papers as assassination attempt on Biden straight away. So, Sue, when you looked at the media coverage, what was your general feeling? Do you think they did a fair job, or do you think there was a bit of messing around with the narrative?
Oh, it was just immediate, and you could just see that this just didn't buy into their narrative. They were not comfortable in reporting that this was an assassination attempt. And my husband, he's a hunter and he understands rifles and weapons, and he said that's a rifle, and he said it's probably got a suppressor on it, the sound that it was, and he identified the sound. So this was just immediate, and to just see them in those early stages as they went live to air, they were just really uncomfortable having to report the news, and yet they accuse us of misinformation all the time, and yet they were clearly peddling it, and it just seemed to get worse, and we just thought, well, what's the One News going to be like? And they didn't disappoint in the evening news, so they just could not get their heads around, that reporting it as it was. They were gunshots, they were bullets, and there was an assassination attempt. They just could not use the language.
Okay. Although you did admit, Sue, that you watched the news tonight.
Oh yeah, well we do, because you got to understand where the enemy's coming from, don't you? You watch it for entertainment. There was a while where my children banned it. Mum, it just triggers you. Now I just watch it, and you watch it through veiled vision. Just say, oh, where are they going to come from? You got to know your stuff, what they're actually saying.
There's a clip I want to show you that's gone viral about one breakfast. But just before I do, Mel, what did you think of the media coverage?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. It is so good because we have social media, we have videos now. Everyone around the world has seen what's happened, and they can call out the media. They can see as plain as day exactly what they're playing at. So I think it's great, and that's why more and more independent media sites are coming on board and people are getting more interested in them. And if you look at the polls that keep coming out, how much do you trust the media? They're pathetic. No one trusts the media, and it's for reasons like this. So, no, for me, I think mainstream media reporting like that, it was great.
Okay, just before I come to you, men, the clip that was going viral, and I noticed just before I came on air that it's going viral on X now, which is formerly Twitter, is this clip from last year of the One Breakfast team playing Shoot
Okay,
Trump.
Donald Trump's here, so let's say Donald Trump.
It doesn't hurt.
Put him down there.
Or
Does it have like a laser?
I'm not sure it's actually that far.
I feel like there needs to be a laser on this thing. Or do you, okay.
This is.
Oh!
Hey!
Yeah, charming. Anyway, go on Twitter and you'll see it is going viral around the world. Libs of TikTok have picked it up, which makes it means it's going to go even more viral. But Simon, you had a visceral reaction to that, didn't you?
Oh, I just thought it was appalling. At the time, it was appalling. Just bad taste. And in many ways, the events of the last 24 hours shows why it is just in bad taste. So now I thought it was good that you posted it and drew people's attention to it, because, again, you just need to do the thought experiment, isn't it? And it's like your media coverage question. If this was Biden, or that was the TVNZ crew shooting an Obama doll, all hell would break loose. But because it's Trump, because it's Republican, because it's conservative, it's acceptable. Which draws me right back to those earlier comments, Bob, which is the rhetoric from all sides, but particularly coming out of the left, the progressives, the woke, the Democrats, have led to this. And they're going to have a troubled time trying to do the victim blaming. Because, of course, they're always big into not blaming the victim. And now they'll try to hold back, but they won't be able to resist to actually stop trying to blame Trump for this.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another whole tangent.
Ashley, I was interviewing the CEO of the Pennsylvania Family Institute, who I'm seeing next week in the US, and because Pennsylvania was a state where it actually happened. And I said to him, look, in fairness, is it true that the temperature has risen on both sides of the debate, and that the language is coming from both sides?
Is that a question?
Oh, yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Although I'm with there was no implied question there, Bob. But I'm with Mal. I think every time the media do this, it's fantastic because nobody believes them. Their respect levels are dropping through the floor. This stuff's inherently transparent, whether it's on this issue over the Trump shooting or a dozen other local or international issues on which they take a biased position. Every time they do this, they just hammer one more nail in their coffin. In fact, the only issue on which it doesn't happen is issues around Israel, where people on the left and the right, for some reason, seem to believe some of the media nonsense there. But on pretty much everything else, this thing included, people see it for what it is. It's a biased left-wing media, and the sooner we get some balance back in media coverage, the better.
Can we? That was a question. Can we?
Oh, can we get... no, we can't. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but no, we can't. Interestingly, and it was interesting when you were showing those American newspapers, and it's one of the things I meant to acknowledge last week, and it happens in the UK as well. The States and the UK, and to a lesser degree Australia, have always had biased media in the sense that they actually take a position politically and they pin their flag to particular colours. New Zealand hasn't had that for most of my life, and that's what we're finding difficult to get our heads around, the fact that media that's tried to be relatively balanced no longer is. So it's not a new phenomenon, it's just new to us here in New Zealand.
So have we got any mainstream media on the right? your
The
view?
Herald, you would well ZB. You'd have to say ZB is pretty much on the right if you look
Not
at
the
its
news.
lineup. And the
Not the
Herald,
news channel.
ZB.
I think ZB News is one of the most left that I've heard.
Yeah, but if
in
you
my
listen
view.
to the talkback, the
Talkback,
talkbacks
yeah.
pretty good. And the Herald, I think, does an okay job. I mean, there's stuff I see on the Herald that I don't agree with, but I think the left would say the same thing. But the rest of them, they're all pretty much in the same camp.
Yeah. Bruce, you were glued to the TV all yesterday, were you?
Only watching sport.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's a great weekend for sport.
What did you think of the media coverage? Did you get to see any, or did you just switch off?
Well, the initial media coverage was just bubble-headed stuff. One would expect that, and that shot that you gave us of the breakfast show was a great illustration of bubbleheads inside a big bubble. I think, and that's what it's like. We just have to take that now and accept it. And the left is responsible for a great deal more invective than well, I call it the right.
Yeah.
And I think that's self-evident. It's so obvious that it seems to me hardly worth talking about, but there it is.
I actually heard the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, going on about how it was a problem that there was social media because there was so much disinformation around as a result of it. And I just thought, get in the real world. There's still this closeted view about the only truth comes out of the mainstream media, but this is showing the difference. Rodney, what did you think of media coverage?
Oh, appalling. I happened to, like you, see it live. I just stopped for a cup of tea and I flipped on my phone. And the media, of course, were appalling and had no clue. I'm a great fan of X, and I was following it on X. And it's just astonishing. At the speed of light, I was able to follow and see for myself exactly what had happened.
Yeah.
And have contemporaneous accounts. And of course, today, further on X, we have actually had videos appear of people at the event filming the shooter climbing up onto the roof and bear crawling across the roof into position.
Yeah. 3 minutes
They filmed
of
it. Yes. And they were yelling at the police to do something. And you're thinking, not only has X circumvented the news media to give us the raw, unedited chaos of what happened, it's also circumventing any investigation. Because it's not like there's a film that the FBI can grab, say with John F. Kennedy, and put into a vault. It's out there. It's circulating around the world. We've seen it. And we've all reached our own conclusions about what an appalling job the security detail did. At the same time on X, of course, we've had expert close protection specialists speaking out on X. Shooters, snipers shooting out on X. And they're all, like us as amateurs, totally dumbfounded that in an open area where there was a limited number of buildings, there was no checking or coverage on an obvious place to go to shoot Donald Trump.
Yep. The one that really grabbed me was, I'm just making sure I got it, this one. I mean, when CNN came out with that, my blood boiled, when he says they rushed Trump off stage after, Did you think it was Babylon B?
Yes.
Yeah, Babylon B came out with one that said that Trump has been indicted for getting in the way of the bullet. And I mean, they've had a huge amount of fun because there is so much fodder out there. But, look, it was a tragedy and incredible story about that dad who doesn't think of his own safety, jumps on top of his wife and 2 daughters to protect them and is killed in the process. So it's a very sad day. And my understanding, from what I heard, Trump has actually set up a GoFundMe or something like that, and there's been a massive outpouring, but I'm sure they'd rather have their dad back. So still a real tragedy there. Right, we're just about finished that topic, and we haven't got that long to go. Any further comment that you want to make? Because everybody on our comments are just arguing with each other by the look of it. Oh, Vanessa just says, didn't Elon Musk endorse Trump today? Yes, he did. And actually, I saw somebody make a comment about that, about, Elon Musk has endorsed Trump, and how terrible that must be. But I just reminded them that Jack Dorsey, who used to own Twitter, and who's the guy that owns Facebook or Meta, they've donated to the Democrats plenty of times, and nobody's batted an eyelid. So moving on. Who wanted to say something, Bruce?
Well, yeah, actually, it was tragic. Well, no, it wasn't. It was sad, but the event was also heroic. The man who stood and protected his daughter and his wife was heroic, and it indicated that there's something good still in at least some people in America, so that I think a lot of good capital can come out of this, rather than just being entirely condemnatory of everything that's going on. And I think if Trump takes hold of it, as he could do, and looks as though he might, then I suspect that this event, in spite of the sadness, everything could be a real positive and a change of direction. That's what I would like to think anyway. Yeah.
Okay, and for you boomers who don't know the answer is Mark Zuckerberg. I was just doing a test on you. Any other comments? No? Oh, yeah. Rodney.
I just need to correct Bruce Logan. It was Harold McMillan. It was Harold McMillan that said it's events, dear boys, dear boy, that affects what happens in politics.
Yeah, I said Paul Johnson got it from someone.
Okay.
I couldn't remember the politician he got it from.
We stand corrected, Your Honour. Okay,
I thought I had you. Bruce. I apologise. I should never think such.
That's all right. I tried. Look, I knew he didn't say it, but I'd forgotten who it was.
Yeah. Look, we've only got 5 minutes left, and I don't think we're going to give justice to any of the other topics. We had a little discussion before we came on air, and Rodney, you were telling us a little bit about a little scenario that you've been observing, and I was wondering, without any specifics and as vague as you want to tell it, just tell us what has happened to your family recently.
Yeah, so we live in Queenstown, and up at the remarkable ski field, they have ladies and men's toilets. Well, this season, at the ladies' toilets, they've added the transgender sign. So the men's toilets are still only for men, but at the women's toilets, they invite men in as well. And, of course, this is horrific to me for my two daughters. They've already had the experience at another venue of about to walking into a changing shed and having a bearded 6 foot over man walk out in a frock and absolutely horrify them. My girls don't like going to public toilets now. And so this is very upsetting to me as a dad, that you're sending your daughters off to go to the toilet and the venue is inviting men in there who pretend to be women. So I wrote to the remarkable ski field and I said, this is a health and safety issue. I didn't like to add that as far as my daughter's concerned, I'd feel for the guy who goes in there. But it's a health and safety issue, because how can a young girl feel safe?
Yeah.
And they came back to say, oh, look, there's, toilets downstairs that are, just for women. But having this invitation to transgender into the women's toilet is all part of their drive for inclusivity and to not allow people to feel excluded. Well, the whole
actually, it is exclusive, isn't it? Because you've said that a man identifying as a woman can go in the women's toilets, but a woman identifying as a man can't go in the men's toilets?
No, peculiarly, it's the men's toilet. The men's toilet is solely for men.
Women have never wanted to go into men's toilets. Why is that?
It's a woman. It's a woman's toilets that have been opened up. And peculiarly, it's a young woman who's written to me from the remarkable ski field saying how wonderful this is. And I'm not letting it drop. And Bob McCoskey suggested a great thing to me, and I'm going to ask my daughters if they're up for it, to stand there with their camera and asking women as they go in, do they feel comfortable that men are invited into their toilet? And I think we all know the result.
Okay, well, let's just do a quick survey of our gender study academics on our panel tonight and see what they would recommend we do. Ashley?
Oh, pretty much exactly what you're suggesting. Do a poll on it, see what it is. The problem with this, of course, though, is that you've already got overwhelming data suggesting that the public don't want this. So how much more do we have to provide before some action's taken? I'm getting to the point now where I'm actually getting pretty angry with this government because they just seem to be ignoring this and pretending it's not there.
Yeah. Mel, as a woman, do you want transgender women in the toilet?
Oh, absolutely no way. And I don't want my kids anywhere near that. And I think we need to bring it to light. And I think if anyone watching is concerned about that going on, then they need to write in and say, no, not good enough. Make a stand.
Okay, Elaine says, hang on, sorry. She says, I've just been to New Zealand on holiday and was shocked that there were so few ladies' toilets. Most were unisex. Elaine, can you just message where you're watching from? Bruce, got any suggestions for Rodney?
Well, just it's so obvious. Most people don't want it. But as I was saying just before the program, I went into that toilet in the Christchurch airport, which was the three little figures on it. And the interesting thing about it is that each cubicle was like a padded cell. I don't know how much it cost to build, but it was, the doors were solid and the walls were solid and they went up to the ceiling. You know, they were. So on the one hand, they claim exclusivity, but on the other hand, it's exclusion because you're locked into your little loo forever.
Yeah. And we did a story for Pulse Point on this particular issue, and actually I had to read the building code and find out what's the background to why, because urinals are being banned from every school, right? And so if you rebuild the toilets in a school, you can't put in a urinal anymore. And I actually thought to myself, why are urinals, why were they introduced in the first place? And the fact of the matter is, as the Greens would appreciate, they use less water. They're easier to clean. They're space efficient, and they don't spread bugs as much as toilet seats, etc. And so there was a whole lot of very good reasons for having urinals, but when you're up against gender ideology,
they're faster.
Well, that's exactly right. That's why the line into the men's is always shorter. Simon, any advice?
Just echo what Mel was saying, actually, it takes good people to stand up. So I think it's fantastic what Rodney's doing and a few others, but actually there are far too many people who find this ludicrous and stupid, but are not prepared to stand up, and they need to. They don't have to stand with the protest sign, but write in, say to this ski field, it's absurd, because at the end of the day, the whole inclusivity argument falls apart because a number of people, and in this case particularly women, are feeling excluded from their own spaces. And as Sal Grover and many others, yourself too, Bob, have spoken into, this is men invading women's spaces. The very victories, if you will, the wins that they've had are being erased. And the stupidity is, well, we use the term in the China space, useful idiots. There's a whole lot of these actual women who are supportive of it. They are the useful idiots in this space, and they need to be called out as well.
Yeah. Sue, final advice?
Find the angry mothers. There's no way that I'd be letting my daughter in these spaces, and I've raised my son to be a respectful young man. Find the angry mothers, and I'm just wondering, where on earth are all the die-hard bloomin' feminists? They seem to advocate and push for these ludicrous policies. This is about women's spaces and women's safety, girls' safety.
Yeah.
And we just push this nonsense of DEI and not only in bathrooms, but it's about time that we just take back. This is erasure of our language and our spaces once again. And, we thought we'd fought these battles. There's a reason why women and male and female spaces are separate. And, it's just a nonsense. I suggest to Rodney, if he's up on the ski fields and he's asking the parents outside going in, find those angry mothers and say, is this okay? It's just one area. They're everywhere. I was in Melbourne recently going through all gender bathroom. If I'm a mother with a daughter getting off a flight from an international flight and I'm going through, I'm not sending my daughter into a place like that. We've just got to get angry about this. This is nonsense, and we've got to start and continue to push back on this, that it's not acceptable. And I just don't buy the whole inclusivity.
All right. Great job, team. It's 3:09 and I need to go to the toilet, so we're out of time. So great. Great job. Tomorrow morning, of course, is Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor live at 8 o'clock. What are we talking about tomorrow, Simon?
Well, undoubtedly, we'll be talking about Trump and American politics, but actually I want to draw people's attention to some of the things happening here in New Zealand politically. And actually everything from surrogacy to the ferries, as in the ferries going across Cook Strait. So quite a few topics to discuss. So, tune on in, well 8 a.m.
Okay, and just a warning, we won't be here next week. We're having a week off, and that's partly because I'm actually in Washington, D.C. for a large gathering of extremely conservative people. So watch out the White House. So no Straight Talk next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you, Rodney. Great job. Thank you, Ashley. I'll send you some books to add to your shelf just to even it up. Mel, I hope the power comes back on. Sue, Bruce, Simon, great job. And thank you for watching. And we will see you in 2 Mondays' time. Have a great week.